Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is a case that happened in 2019 and, well, it was actually solved a few months ago. Well, not solved. It's still ongoing, but she was thought to be a missing person for like 3 years, and then sadly something was found in the case that completely changed that. And that happened a couple of months ago. The name of who I'm going to talk about today is, excuse me, Leah Croucher. Leah Croucher was born on the 14th of August in 1999 to her parents Claire and John. She was born in Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire in, obviously, England. She had 2 half-siblings. Her sister was actually called Jade, and she had a brother who was called Hayden, and they were both quite a lot older than her. By I think Jade was 7 years older and Hayden was 5 years older. But despite, there being a bit of an age gap, Leah was very, very close to her family. She was very close to both of them. So basically, Leah had a different mother to, obviously, her brothers. Her father had been with their mother for a while, and then they split up. And then he got with Leah's mother and had Leah. And Leah and Hayden were so close. They were like 2 peas in a pod. They were really, really close. John was actually a practiced martial arts fan and taekwondo instructor, and he raised both of his son and Leah to basically master the sport. They grew up, they were considered martial art experts, and they competed in all these different competitions as a teenager, so they were really, really good at it. And obviously that just brought her and Hayden closer because they could bond over taekwondo as well. Now, Leah was funny, witty, confident. She loved fantasy fiction, but she was very much a homebody. She absolutely would always be at home. When this case happened, she was 19 years old. She didn't really go out and drink and have fun and party. Not fun. I'm not saying that you have to go out to drink to have fun. I just mean that wasn't her version of fun. She didn't really enjoy it. In fact, on one occasion, because she was home all of the time, her mother was like, why don't you go out for a few drinks on this certain day? I can't remember which day it was, whatever. And so she did, but then she just came home because she thought it was too expensive and she wasn't having fun. Now let's skip to the 15th of February in 2019, and this is a very sad day for the family indeed. In fact, let's go to the day before. This is when it all began, in a sense. So Leah had spent the day, well, it was the evening. She told her mum that she was going to see some friends, but it was later found out that that was not the case. Not in the case that she thought. She thought she was going to meet up with some friends, female friends and girlfriends and this and the other, but it actually wasn't what she did. So that was about 6 p.m. anyway. She'd been to work and everything during that day. She got home. She told her mum she was going to see some friends at 6. She got back by about 7:15, and it was said that she was acting totally normal. Then at 10 o'clock, I know that Claire, her mother, it was the last time that she saw Leah. Because Leah worked the next morning, she wouldn't actually see her. And this is now the Friday the 15th. So bearing in mind, the day before was Valentine's Day, which could be poignant with regards to what she actually did when she said she was seeing some friends, which we'll get into in a little bit. So she gets up on the 15th, she wakes up quite early for work, about 8 a.m, and she leaves her house. She often walked to work. It was about a 2-mile journey. She did it quite a lot. She did sort of change up this route every now and again, but, it was generally a couple of routes that she took. So she set off on her journey, and she never arrived at work. Nobody thought much of it at the time. I don't know whether this was common for Leah to just not turn up to work, but she was a creature of habit, and when it got to 6 o'clock and Leah did not come home, her parents knew something was wrong, and they was really worried. So they called the police and they reported her as missing. The Thames Police Department jumped straight on this case because obviously she'd potentially could have been missing since 8 a.m. They don't know. She never made it to work. Whether she had intentions of going to work that day at all, who knows? But she did set off for work, obviously. And it's now 6 p.m. So there's a potential of a lot of hours that she could be missing already. So they jumped straight on it, thank goodness. And they started scouring CCTV to see if they could find her just anywhere, see where she could have gone. And they did find her, on the CCTV at least. She was walking in Thurston on Buscott Lane about 8:15 a.m. and she was walking in the direction of Bear Drive and Chaperon Way. There was a sighting of a young woman matching her description that came in. Obviously, the police are out sending out public information, trying to get witnesses to see if they'd seen Leah at this point. And that was about 8:20. Then at 8:34 a.m., Leah vanished off of the face of the earth, and nobody had any idea where she'd gone. Not only that, that was the time that her phone was turned off, like completely off, so there was no way of tracking anywhere that she had gone. And the day before as well, she actually turned at some point during the day her location settings off, which was the first time she had ever done that. She'd never done that before, and that day she did. So I don't know whether she was trying to make sure that nobody could track her, like her friends or something like that. You know, like, I know Snapchat has the feature where you can see where your friends are. So whether it was something to do with that, I don't know, but she did turn it off, and it was the first time that was ever done. And then obviously at like 8:35, she turns her phone off. And then after that, they looked into whether she accessed her banks, anything like that. Nothing. And that is never a good sign. After this phone was shut off, there were 2 unconfirmed sightings that people believe that they saw Leah. There was one at about 8:45 a.m. near some place called Teardrop Lake, and that's about 0.1 miles away from where she worked. And she worked at a finance place, I believe. Now, because this was near a lake and they thought they had seen Leah there, they decided that they were going to search that lake. Obviously, they were looking for her. You know, what if she fell in? They scoured and scoured that lake, but they didn't find Leah. And this is when the police investigation really kicked off. They started knocking on doors. So there was a certain area, they knew where Leah had gotten to because of the CCTV. But then after a certain area, there's like another section of CCTV that she would have walked by to get to work, okay? She didn't make it that far. So we know the kind of area that she went missing in, because you've got where she's caught on CCTV and where she's not. So you know in that time she has vanished. So they had like a specific area that they could look in as well. So they absolutely scoured all around that area. They knocked on 4,000 doors. They were handing out flyers. They were trying to get the public to see, you know, anything. If they remembered any little tiny bit of information that they may think relevant, that they might not even know was Leah, but it could have been, just ring in and just tell them kind of thing, anything. Because they were not having any luck trying to find her. You know, they were searching everywhere. They were using all of the tools that they could. And I mean, they were using everything. And they just were having no success whatsoever. And at this point, Leah had not accessed her banks. She had not turned her phone back on. There was just nothing. And so, obviously, that's never a good sign. That if you think if someone's going to run away, okay, they're going to need money, they might access the bank, or they might have took out like a wad of money before they gone and run away, because running away was on the cards. Like, well, they were hoping, obviously, you'd rather hope that somebody ran away than the alternate, what could have happened to them. So, you know, they were considering all their options, but she'd not accessed anything like that. And soon, it would turn into weeks, and still no sign of Leah. The police began appealing to the public. They were putting her face everywhere they could. They put out, eventually the police did release like what she was wearing as well, so that if anybody saw anything like that, you know, they could report that. And it was said that she was wearing a barber style jacket, a small black rucksack that was leather. She had skinny jeans, a black high top Converse. She was also wearing a grey hoodie, and this was from her local taekwondo club, and it had a really bright like logo on it. So, you know, they were trying to focus on these things that would have been really noticeable, and not a lot of people would be wearing that because it was from a local taekwondo club. So, you know, obviously the people that went there would wear it, but it's just something that not everybody would have had, basically. And it was quite unique. So they were trying to focus on things like that to try and just get any information they could. And of course they were doing door-to-door inquiries. My issue with this is really frustrating because, I mean, we'll find out later on. But if in a police investigation, right, you have somebody that's missing, what if somebody just doesn't answer the door? What happens then? Like, shouldn't they do something about that? Because, I'm sorry, but if you've like taken somebody, you're not just going to go ahead and go and open the door and let the police in, are you? I mean, for all they knew, they could have been hiding upstairs. And so then what happens on that occasion? Surely after like no contact for a couple of times, you need to speak to that homeowner, surely, because that person that you're looking for could be in there. And I don't know. I mean, it is relevant to this case, and you will find out in a little bit if you don't know this case as to why I'm saying that. Her parents did public appeals. You know, they had divers, they had dogs, they had everything, and still nothing. Some kind person put up a £5,000 reward for any information leading to, you know, Leah, and still nothing. And it would remain so for years. But that wasn't the only tragedy to befall this family. And honestly, it absolutely breaks my heart out. Because obviously, Leah and Hayden were very close. And Hayden had suffered with his mental health previously. It was coming up to a 9-month mark that Leah had been missing. And it was very hard for all of the family, obviously. Jade was really trying to keep Hayden's spirits up and keep them glued together. She was doing the best that she could. But Hayden was going to like a therapist as well. And he actually told his therapist that he was planning on potentially taking his own life. And the therapist obviously advised him to go into and seek mental health help in a hospital, which he did. He took that advice and he did go in. However, the hospital basically said that they didn't have any beds and that he could go home to his mum. So he went home to his mum, and I believe Jade was there as well. And the 9-month mark was coming up, like I said. His dad had messaged him saying, you know, we're all in this together. We're going to meet up together. We're going to be devastated all together and support each other. And sadly, Hayden decided that he couldn't do it anymore, and he took his own life. I'm not sure whether it was Jade or his mother who actually found him, but he had. Of course, they tried to get him down. They did CPR. I believe they did get a rhythm back, but at that point it was too late, and he was already like severely brain damaged because he didn't get any oxygen going to his brain, and he died. So not only was Leah missing, they had no idea what happened to her for the last 9 months. The 19-year-old daughter, and now I believe Hayden was 24, he had taken his own life because he couldn't cope with his sister being missing. And it just absolutely fully broke my heart, because that family was already going through one of the worst things that could happen, and then for that to happen on top of it, honestly, I just don't know how they didn't fully break. And I completely admire them for that they just, I don't know, I just can't. It's just awful. But yeah, there we go. Now, during this time as well, the family had time to reflect. That's all you can do in these situations, is you think about whether she changed, whether something happened, all of these things that you probably thought were nothing and may have been nothing. But that's all you do, is you just think about everything. And so that's what they were doing. So a family were thinking back and thinking that Leah had slightly changed. They were also thinking a lot about something that Hayden found out, that she was seeing a married man or an engaged man. I'm not sure if he was fully married. But this man was a Muslim man. He was called Adnan Chowdhury, and it turns out that it's believed that he was meeting Leah the day. Do you remember when I said that she went meeting friends and it was Valentine's Day? Well, it's actually thought that she went to meet him. And her mother and stuff, they did find out, but her mother basically said to her, don't go falling in love with him because he's not yours, because he's married, basically. So it seems like she was still meeting up with him and things like that. Not only that, on one occasion, Leah had booked this hotel room. She told her mum and dad that she was going to a hotel room with some girls, having a girl night out, and obviously her mum was over the moon with that because it's something she never really did and she thought she'd really enjoy it. And so her dad dropped her off there, and then later on, after she'd gone missing, they got like a bill through the post or whatever, and they found that she'd actually booked into a travel lodge close by. She wasn't even at that hotel, so it's thought that once more she was potentially with him. Now, they did look into him. He has a solid alibi. It's not believed that he had anything to do with it whatsoever, but Hayden apparently did a lot of harassing of him as well, because he, like I said, he was struggling with his mental health before he took his life, obviously, and he was doing a lot of online harassing because he really thought that this man had something to do with her going missing. And I can understand, you know, a lot of the time it is the case. Obviously he's married. If he didn't want his wife to find out and somehow she did, or he was scared, people have killed for a lot less. So I can understand it, but you know, he did have an alibi, and it's not thought that he's involved in the case whatsoever. But Hayden was really struggling and really thought that he was, you know, the one that took his sister. And there was a lot of, like, even the court got involved with that, like, to the point where they was like, they took pity on Hayden and said, listen, I know your sister's gone missing, it's horrible, but you need to let the police do their job, basically. And then obviously, sadly, he did that later on. And can I just say as well, I think that it's pretty disgraceful that the hospital just let him go when they knew that he was such a threat to himself. And after he did that, and his mother is actually fighting still to this day with the hospitals, because she, as many people believe, he shouldn't have been let home that day. They should have done something. And that's my opinion too, at least anyway. So yeah, she's still fighting for that now. There was also sightings of that came in of a distressed woman by Pheasant Lake on a phone, crying between 9:15 and like 11:15, something like that anyway. But they were unconfirmed sightings. It was just assumed that this could have been Leah. But one thing to note is that Leah turned her phone off. So did she have another secret phone? Was this even her? Who knows? But this woman was on the phone crying and upset and visibly distressed around this lake. But it wasn't Leah's like personal phone that everybody knew about that they were using at the very least. So whether she had a secret one or not, who knows? But because of that, obviously they searched around that area a lot, and they never really knew whether that person was even remotely looked like Leah. Obviously, it was just what a few people had said. But then 9 months ago, an image was actually released of a woman that it was very grainy. You can't see, it's fully black, and there's a few people on the left like walking their dogs. But it actually sort of laid foundation to those claims. Whether it was Leah or not, they still didn't know. But they now had a photo to go along with the claim that somebody was wearing all black pretty much and in there upset around that time, and it was there. And so they put out public appeals again. They also did this new thing with 3D posters, missing people, where they have like a still image and the motion, they give motion to it, and she's like blinking and stuff, and it makes it look more real. So they were trying to sort of promote that as well and just get her name really out there again. All these years they were still investigating all the leads and stuff. But obviously now that they released this image and this poster, they were just really doing like a final push, I guess you could say, for people to just try and remember anything. Like literally anything. And that photograph, the time on it was 10:51, and it was on the 15th February 2019. So then 8 months after this photo of the woman in black was released, the Croucher family would finally get some information on Leah's case, and not in any way that anybody would have ever wanted. But at least they now know. Like, I don't know, the not knowing is really, really hard. And now that they do know, there's just no question. I don't know what's better, to be honest. Would you rather like live in hope that they are out there one day and that you might ever see them again? Or would you rather fully know what happens to them, good or bad, I guess? I don't know. Whatever, I'm just rambling. But a tip was called into the police, and it absolutely blew the investigation wide open. This was on Monday the 10th of October in 2022. So I'm recording this. Oh wow, the 1st of January. I'm recording this on the 1st of January. So yeah, like 3 months ago. 2 months ago, whatever. So the tip was called in at about 6:30, and it was regarding a property on 2 Lockspear Drive. It's that middle section where we know that Leah definitely went missing. And that's where this house is. And that's where Leah was last, like just before where Leah was last seen at 8:15 a.m. on the CCTV. So the police get to this house, they set up a tent, they cordon it all off, and they go inside. And what they find inside is some items of personal belongings in the attic that belong to Leah. her bag, all of these things, and they also find some remains. And this is when the police changed Leah's investigation from a missing persons to a murder investigation. The remains went for testing, and sadly it was confirmed that this was Leah. So after over 3 years of her being missing, she had finally been found, and she was found in a house not far from the location where she was last seen. And how I said that the investigation bit is frustrating, let me just tell you that this house was actually confirmed by police to have been visited twice with no answer. So that's what really bugs me, because she was in there. She was in there and they didn't get an answer. And so, what? Nothing. But the owner of the house, actually, it's thought that whoever it is, pretty much does not ever live there. They live overseas, so they're never really there. They had somebody in who did maintenance on the house and things like that. So basically, this is why the owner is not implicated whatsoever, because they were never actually there. And this is probably why it took so long for them to find her body. But yeah, she was in one of them houses that they knocked on, they didn't get an answer. They knocked on again, they didn't get an answer. And nothing. That was just that. It was just left, which is kind of really frustrating. I get it, like, no one answers, what can you do? But surely there must be something that we can do better in these cases. Like, she was missing and she was in that house, and they could have found her 3 years ago if they would have followed up on all those houses that nobody answered. What's the point of knocking on all these doors and saying, yeah, I knocked on 4,000 doors, but nobody answered? Do you know what I mean? It's just my personal opinion. It's just really dumb, but okay. And of course, it is heartbreaking that her family, after this horrific thing happened to them, after everything, that in the end they found out that Leah was deceased all of this time. And it's just really heartbreaking. Now, they did actually announce a suspect in the case. However, this man is also deceased. It was one Neil Maxwell. He was actually found after having taken his own life 2 months after Leah went missing. So, it's thought that he actually did this because he's the maintenance man who worked on the house. He's the only one that had access to keys to that house during that time. I believe he had them from November 18 up until, obviously, after Leah went missing. And who knows, did he watch Leah as she walked to work? Because he had a colourful criminal history. A lot of it was sexual assault on women. He actually had warrants out for his arrest, but he would evade the police by, I don't know, renting cars and moving a lot and not actually having a set home. And so they tried to arrest him numerous times because he had actually sexually assaulted a woman, and they were trying to get him for that, but they just never did. He just evaded them all the time until they found him deceased in, like, I believe it was April-ish. So yeah, I don't know whether he saw Leah walking out that day to work. He came up from behind her, grabbed her, and took her in. I know she knew Taekwondo, but she was, 5 foot something. He was quite a tall guy. If she came up from behind from her and just grabbed her, sometimes sometimes people can't stand a chance. And as well, her father said that Leah, although she did know Taekwondo, she wasn't really a fighter. And so, yeah, it's absolutely heartbreaking. So sadly, there will never be justice in this case, and we don't actually know whether Maxwell is the one that did it, because it's not been fully confirmed. It's still going to be investigated. There's still forensicing, that's not a word, but that's what I'm going to use, the scene. And, it's still ongoing, and we're still looking into this, but sadly, Leah has been found. We know what happened to her to an extent, and justice won't be served because Neil already took his life. So it absolutely breaks my heart. There'll be more information on this case, which I will obviously be looking out for. But yeah, that is the end of this video. If you guys have enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for similar content. And this is all I have today on the case of Leah Croucher. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye!